we're talking about on fashion, having the confidence of taste to be able to sort of push through on this idea of design. But you've also mentioned somebody you admire is Rick Rubin in his book, The Creative Act. It has some really interesting ideas, and one of them is to accept self doubt and imperfection. So, is there some battle within yourself that you have on sort of striving for perfection and for the confidence and always kind of having it together versus like accepting that things are always going to be imperfect?
I think every day. I think I wake up in the morning and, I want to be better. I want to be a better mom. I want to be a better wife. I want to be more creative. I want to be physically stronger. And so that very much lives within me all the time. I think I also grew up in the context of being the child of two extraordinarily successful parents. And that could have been debilitating for me. And I saw that in a lot of my friends who grew up in circumstances similar to that. They were afraid to try for fear of not measuring up. And I think somehow early on, I learned to kind of harness the fear of not being good enough, not being competent enough. And I harnessed it to make me better, and to push me outside of my comfort zone. So I think that's always lived with me, and I think it probably always will. I think you have to have humility in anything you do, that you could be better,
Mhm.
and strive for that. I think as you get older, it softens a little bit as you have more reps. As you have more examples of having been thrown in the deep end, and figured out how to swim. You get a little bit more comfortable in your sort of abstract competency. But if that fear is not in you, I think you're not challenging yourself enough.
Harness the fear. The other thing he writes about is intuition,
Mm.
that you need to trust your instincts and intuition. That's a very Rick Rubin thing to say. But so, what percent of your decision making is intuition, and what percent is through rigorous, careful analysis, would you
I think
say?
it's both. It's like trust but verify,
Yeah.
I think I think that's also where age and experience comes into play, because I think you always have sort of a gut instinct, but I think intuition, like well-honed intuition, comes from a place of accumulated knowledge, right? So oftentimes when you feel really strongly about something, it's because you've been there, like what's right. Or on a personal level, if you're acting in accordance with your core values, it just feels good. And even if it would be the right decision for others, if you're acting outside of your sort of integrity or core values, it doesn't feel good. And your intuition will signal that to you. You'll never be comfortable. So I think because of that, I start oftentimes with my intuition, and then I put it through like a rigorous test of whether that is in fact true. But very seldom do I go against what my initial instinct was. Not at least at this point in my life.
Yeah, I had actually a discussion yesterday with a big time business owner, investor, who's talking about being impulsive and following that. Like
Yeah,
on a phone call, shifting like the entire everything, like giving away a very large amounts of money and moving it in another direction on an impulse, making a promise that he can't at that time deliver, but knows if he works hard, he'll
mm,
deliver, and all doing just following that impulsive
yeah,
feeling. And he said now that he has a family, that probably some of that impulse is quieted down a little bit. He's more rational and thoughtful and so on, but wonders whether it's sometimes good to just be impulsive and to
yeah.
just trust your gut and just go with it. Don't deliberate too long, because then you won't do it. It's interesting. It's the confidence, the stupidity maybe of youth, that leads to some of the greatest breakthroughs. And
Yeah.
it's like there's a cost to wisdom and deliberation.
There is, but I actually think in this case, as you get older, you may act less impulsively, but I think you're more like attuned with, you have more experience, so your gut is like more well honed,
Yeah,
you know?
yeah, that's
So
true.
your instincts are more well honed. I think I found that to be true for me.
Hmm.
You know, it doesn't feel as like reckless.